Part 15. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 141. Chapter 141. I want to break off the engagement. Ling Chu was surprised. As for Grandma Wang, she is engaged to the eldest son of the Duke of Zhao. She subconsciously looked through the memories in her mind, but she didn't find anything about the engagement. It seems that the original owner, like her, knew nothing about the marriage. What surprised Ling Chu was that when she glanced at everyone, she saw the same surprised look on their faces as hers. An idea suddenly came to her mind. Could it be that Mrs. Tai and the others don't know about this marriage? This is interesting. Ling Chu couldn't help but turn his head to look at Ms. Dong. There was no surprise on her mother's face. It seems that this marriage was decided by her. She has been fostered in Suankigwan since she was a child. It is not surprising that Mr. Dong arranged a marriage for her without telling her. What Ling Chu didn't understand was why Dong wanted to hide it from the madam and the others. Could it be that there is something fishy about her marriage? Many thoughts flashed through Ling Chu's mind. Although she was suspicious, she was not in a hurry to speak. She knows nothing about this marriage, so why not listen to what Mrs. Dong and Grandma Wang have to say first? Mrs. Tai and the others were indeed like Ling Chu in that they did not know that Dong had engaged her. Mrs. Tai was angry at this moment. Although she didn't like Ling Chu, she was still a girl from her Ling family. She subconsciously wanted to ask Mr. Dong whether he didn't take her mother-in-law seriously when he decided to get married without telling her. Just as he glanced at Grandma Wang, he had to swallow the question. If she asks questions now, it will only make the Duke of Zhao laugh. Mother Wang was talking to Mrs. Dong at this time and did not notice the surprise on the faces of Mrs. Tai and others. Mrs. Ling, our wife said that although your Shangshu mansion has declined, the rules and etiquette cannot be lost. If you can't teach the eldest daughter well, our Duke's mansion can send a nun to take care of the eldest daughter's education. Education. Being accused by a nanny in public, Ms. Dong was angry, but she had to suppress her anger. Mom, you are too worried. My first sister has been fostered in a Taoist temple since she was a child, and her temperament has been raised to be more straightforward. It is inevitable that she will return to Beijing for the first time. I am curious about the capital, but I just want to go out and have a look. Let's take a look. I don't think so. We, madam, have heard that the eldest girl recently set up a stall to tell people's fortunes on the Royal Street. Madam Ling, do you think that the people in Duke Zhao's mansion are all fools and can be allowed to do whatever they want? Are you fooling me? Grandma Wang's words were sarcastic. If she hadn't been frightened just now and had scruples in her heart, she would have said it even more harshly. Seeing that Mrs. Dong was so ridiculed by Grandma Wang that she couldn't stand up, the wife had to say, Mom, I've said it before. My first sister has indeed been setting up a stall in U Street recently to tell fortunes. She is young and ignorant, and she is just making trouble. Let's play. Please also ask Grandma to reassure Madame Kuagong that we, the first sister, will not set up stalls again in the future. Ling Chu frowned, feeling that all the words she had just said to the madam and the others were in vain. Mrs. Tai is still sensible and sensible. We, the Duke of Zhao, do not want to marry a bluffing girl to become the eldest prince's concubine. Ling Chu sneered, your Duke Zhao's office doesn't want to marry her, but she doesn't want to marry yet. Originally, I wanted to hear how her marriage came about, but after listening over and over again, I didn't hear anything important. Ling Chu simply asked Mrs. Dong directly, Mom, when did you arrange a marriage for me and Mr. Zhao? Why didn't I know? Mrs. Tai did not expect that Ling Chu would ask about the marriage in front of Grandma Wang. Although she felt it was inappropriate, she was also curious about the matter and hesitated for a moment, but still did not stop her. Yes, sister-in-law, When did you decide to marry Chu Ji and why did you hide it from us? Ms. Dong didn't want to mention the matter more, and just said vaguely, I didn't mean to hide the marriage. It's not that Sister Chu is not in the house, and I have to be in charge of the middle minister of the house and take care of Brother Hao. I was so busy that I forgot about this matter. The second lady was non-committal to Dong's explanation. She wanted to ask more, but was stopped by the look in her eyes. Grandma Wang was surprised. She really didn't expect that the people in the Ling mansion didn't know that their eldest daughter was engaged. But she didn't explain much. Today's Ling mansion is no longer the house of the Secretary of the Ministry of Household Affairs, and Miss Ling's status is simply not worthy of the eldest son of their family. If Mrs. Guo Gong hadn't considered that Mrs. Ling had helped her in the past and was worried that breaking off the engagement at this time would be criticized, she would have called off the marriage long ago. Ling Chu glanced at Mrs. Dong and saw that she didn't want to say anything, so she didn't bother to ask any more questions. It doesn't matter when the marriage was decided. Anyway, she traveled through time and had no intention of getting married. Grandma, Mother, I am not doing this for a fool's errand. I have been weak since I was a child, and my master specifically told me to do more good deeds and accumulate virtue. Moreover, the master said that I can only take good care of my body with medicine, and I am not suitable for getting married and having children. Otherwise your life will be in danger. After a pause, Ling Chu added another dose of strong medicine. If you force a marriage and give birth to children, the children will also die in infancy. Ling Chu wanted to say that she was not destined to get married, but considering that if the madam and the others didn't believe it and asked someone to calculate her birth date, her lie would be exposed on the spot. She is not lying now. The soul of this body has indeed not been adjusted well, and it is not suitable for marriage. Even if an imperial doctor comes to diagnose and treat her, the conclusion will only be the same as what she said. After hearing Ling Chu's words, Grandma Wang's eyes lit up. Their wife had long wanted to cancel the marriage, but she could never find a suitable reason. If Miss Ling is not physically able to give birth to an heir, they will propose to break off the engagement. This is no wonder the Duke of Zhao's house. Mrs. Tai frowned. She originally hoped that Ling Chu would be able to climb up to the Imperial Guard and command Mr. Ning, and then marry into the Duke of Ning's palace, but this matter was still pending after all. And Master Ning is not a kind person. Even if he marries Chu Ji's son in the future, he may not support their Ling family. It is not as safe as this ready-made marriage. Sister Chu, don't talk nonsense. Although your master wants you to do good deeds and accumulate virtue, he doesn't necessarily have to set up a stall and tell fortunes. Building roads, building bridges, and giving charity can all be good deeds and merits. Although you are a little weak, it is not a big problem. Let your mother take good care of you in the future, and you will definitely get married healthily. When she learned that Mr. Dong had arranged the marriage without telling her, Mrs. Tai was really unhappy and felt that Mr. Dong did not care about her as a mother-in-law. But now that the marriage has been arranged, Duke Zhao's mansion is now a proper in-law of their Ling mansion. Mrs. Tai thought about it and decided that it would be a good thing for Sister Chu to marry into the Duke of Zhao's house. And now she wished that the Duke of Zhao could find a matchmaker to discuss marriage with her. Sister Chu, marriage is not something that is trivial. It is decided by the parents' orders and the matchmaker's words. You cannot do it randomly. The wife did not agree to break off the engagement, and Mrs. Dong was even more unwilling. If the marriage is called off, what will happen to her Qing? Thanks to Jiangnan Fueo for the reward. Thanks to Nangui Yanzi, CM. Dina, and other book friends for their monthly support. Thank you for the wind chimes, Jin Niu walking freely, China Fuse, Yanglia Bank, Pros. BA, Lang Lang arrives at Guangzhou, swallows returning to the south, happy reading, National 114,514 level protected waist, / don't cry, don't make trouble, don't show off, purple Ling logo, UNU, Zhao Yilan Zi Yan, Biun L in the sky, carat omega carat, meow, xxc, Liu Yana, 202303061958333531, picking the buy in the future, 20230601621658, 202201172206211229, Why Do We Grow Old, etc. are recommended by book friends support. I see familiar names every day, and I always feel that I have so many friends, which warms my heart. Thank you for your company, letting me know that I am not fighting alone, but walking with everyone. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 142. Chapter 142 The incense is broken. Ling Chu knew that neither Mrs. Tai nor Mrs. Dong liked her because of her bad fate. The reason why he doesn't agree with her to break off the engagement now is simply that he sees the decline of the Ling family and wants to use her to marry the Duke of Zhao. After she marries the Duke of Zhao, she will be allowed to support the Ling family with the Duke of Zhao. The abacus is good. But how could Ling Chu let them take advantage of it? Grandma, mother, I know you are doing my best, but now that my grandfather and father have lost their official status, how can the family get money to build bridges and roads and give porridge to charity? Since the master has taught me the hexagram technique, it is for me to use it to help people in need. I forgive Ling Chu for not disobeying the master's orders. Getting married is for the sake of marrying two surnames. Now that our Ling family and Zhao Qiagong's family are not from the same family, and my health is not good, this marriage is no longer suitable. It is better to cancel the marriage so as not to delay young Master Zhao. It wouldn't be nice if the two families couldn't get married but instead became enemies. Cough cough cough. Ling Chu finished these words with a pale face, then suddenly covered his mouth and coughed violently. Her cough was earth-shattering and heartbreaking, as if she wanted to cough out her heart, liver, spleen, stomach, and kidneys. Moreover, his weak body was still trembling, as if he would faint at any time. After being ill for so many years, Ling Chu didn't need to disguise himself at all, he easily knew how to make himself look flawless. After hearing what she said, Mrs. Dong and Mrs. Dong were so angry that they wanted to get angry. But now that she was coughing so badly, the fire could only be suppressed. Hearing that Ling Chu was going to break off the engagement, Grandma Wang was pleasantly surprised, but she was inevitably suspicious in her heart. The Ling mansion has now fallen into decline. According to their wife, all the former in-laws of the Ling family have cut off contact with the Ling mansion for fear of being implicated. Now the Zhao Qiagong mansion is the highest branch that the Ling mansion can climb. Not to mention that the young master of the Zhao family is a famous talent in Kyoto. With such a good family relationship, is Miss Ling really willing to give up? Could she be asking for Zhao? Even though she was skeptical, Grandma Wang couldn't hide the joy in her eyes when she saw Ling Chu coughing so badly. It seems that Miss Ling is not lying, her body is really in very bad shape. Whether she is looking for Chiao or not, if Madame knew that Miss Ling was in such poor health, she would definitely not be willing to hire her back. Mother Wang no longer wants to stay any longer. She has to go back quickly and tell Madame about this. She has made a meritorious deed, and the lady will definitely reward her. Since the eldest girl is not feeling well, she should take good care of herself. She must never go out to show herself in public in the future. It is better to stay in the house and learn the rules and etiquette. Grandma Wang suppressed the joy in her heart, said a few casual words, and couldn't wait to say goodbye. Mrs. Tai and Mrs. Dong were afraid that Grandma Wang would go back and tell Mrs. Zhao Qiagong about Ling Chu's poor health, so they tried their best to persuade her to stay. But Grandma Wang ignored it and insisted on leaving. Seeing Grandma Wang leave the main hall, Ling Chu raised the corners of his mouth and slowly stopped coughing. Mrs. Dong and Mrs. Dong's faces were as dark as ink. Ling Chu glanced at it casually, but didn't take it to heart. I just coughed so hard that my throat felt a little uncomfortable. Hand out his hand to pick up the teacup and drank several sips, he felt relieved. Mr. Dong was so angry that her heart ached when she saw her acting like a normal person. He stared at Ling Chu with a look of ice in his eyes. Why did you say those words just now? Do you know you were wrong? Ling Chu gently put down the teacup, raised his eyes and looked straight at the past, and asked coldly, everything I said is the truth, what's wrong with it? You. Ms. Dong did not expect that she would dare to take the blame, and her chest heaved violently with anger. Since you were a child, because of your bad fate and poor health, I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to get married, so I worked hard to get this marriage for you. But instead of cherishing it, you actually want to ruin the marriage. How could I have given birth to such an unfilial daughter like you? I have said before that my body is not suitable for marriage. If I have children, I will only end up with one body and two lives. Just like this, you still insist on me marrying Mr. Zhao. You're talking about two lives for one body, that master of yours is just scaremongering. Haven't you been doing well since you returned to Beijing? I went out every once in a while and nothing happened to you. The second lady curled her lips and said, Sister Chu, your mother is right. You are active every day and your health is better than our elders. You are not as serious as you said. Even Aunt Wen said, Sister, your master may be afraid that you are too young to take your own body seriously, so he took it seriously. As long as you take good care of yourself for a period of time, it will not affect your marriage. Aunt Wen didn't want to get involved in this matter, but she was worried that if Ling Chu really didn't marry, all the things she hoped for would be ruined. Ling Chu sneered, you don't agree with me breaking off the engagement, but you just want to wait until I marry Mr. Zhao so that the Duke of Zhao can support everyone. Do you think that if you force me to do something I don't want to do, I will still comply with your wishes? It's okay not to cancel the marriage, and I'm not the only girl in this house. Since you are so optimistic about this marriage, whoever wants to marry can marry. As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, Dong was startled. Although he didn't say anything, he breathed a sigh of relief. This girl doesn't want to get married, that's just fine. When she changes her marriage to Qing'er in the future, don't blame her for being partial. The second madam, the third madam and Aunt Wen did not expect that Ling Chu really did not want to marry. They were surprised for a while, and then their thoughts immediately changed. Ling Chu glanced at them and could guess without even thinking that they all wanted to compete for the royal family of Zhao Qiagong for their daughters. Ling Chu didn't care who married into the Zhao family, as long as it wasn't her. Ling Chu didn't want to get married, but the wife didn't agree. She sternly said to her with a dark face, follow me. The madam dropped these words and turned around and left the main hall. Ling Chu frowned, hesitated, put down the teacup in his hand, and followed. Originally I thought that the Tai Furen called her out alone to persuade her to marry into the Duke of Zhao's house. Unexpectedly, he brought her to the ancestral hall. Ling Chu was surprised when the madam reached out and pushed open the two ajar doors. There is a large altar table in the room, and the table is densely covered with spiritual tablets of the ancestors of the Ling family. The wife walked in silently, took 3 incense sticks, lit them, bowed, and inserted them into the incense burner. He turned to Ling Chu and said coldly, why don't you come in and offer a stick of incense to your ancestors? As a member of the Ling family, it is considered appropriate to offer incense to our ancestors. Ling Chu didn't say a word, stepped forward, picked up 3 incense sticks, lit them, bowed, and then inserted them into the incense burner. As soon as Keshao left the incense burner, Ling Chu was suddenly stunned. The 3 sticks of incense she had just put into the incense burner were all extinguished. And all 3 incense sticks were broken at once. Ling Chu was stunned. What kind of incense did I buy? The quality is so poor. Ling Chu complained while pulling out the half of the incense that was still inserted in the incense burner, preparing to put another stick. but when she went to get the incense again, she frowned. Can the number of monthly votes exceed 100 today? If it's possible, I'll consider adding an update. Dash. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 143. Chapter 143. The ancestral hall was struck by lightning. Ling Chu lowered his eyes and looked at the 3 incense sticks in his hand carefully, but found that there was nothing wrong with the incense. Although the fragrance was not of high quality, she didn't see anything wrong with it in terms of smell, dryness, etc. Ling Chu turned to look at the incense burner again. The 3 incense sticks that the concubine had just lit were burning well. Could it be that the 3 sticks of incense she just took were of poor quality? Seeing her standing still, Mrs. Tai urged her with a stern face, "Why are you standing there? Why don't you burn incense for your ancestors again?" Ling Chu glanced at her lightly, without saying anything. He picked up 3 more incense sticks, lit them with fire sticks, bowed, then walked to the altar table and put the incense in his hand into the incense burner. What Ling Chu didn't expect was that just as she took her hand back, the incense suddenly went out. And just like before, the 3 incense sticks were broken in the middle. "Hey, eldest lady, what have you done to disgrace the family tradition? Even the ancestors are angry and refuse to accept your incense." The second lady's sarcastic voice sounded at the door of the ancestral hall. It turns out that when Mrs. Dong called Ling Chu away just now, Mrs. Dong and others hesitated and followed. As soon as she walked to the door of the ancestral hall, she happened to see the scene just now, and the second lady immediately started taunting her in a weird way. Ling Chu frowned, raised his hand again to take out half of the incense from the incense burner, turned his head and glanced at the second lady with a cold gaze. "Even if the second aunt doesn't speak, no one will treat you as a mute." The second lady suddenly felt a fire in her heart, but when she met Ling Chu's cold and deep gaze, she suddenly shuddered. Seeing that she had shut her mouth, Ling Chu withdrew his gaze and walked towards the place where the incense was placed again. Behind the back, the second lady's tense heartstrings relaxed, followed by anger. As expected, she is the bane of punishment for the 6 relatives. The look in this dead girl's eyes just now was really scary. Ling Chu ignored the second lady. In order to avoid the incense breaking again, she deliberately opened a new bundle of incense. She took out 3, lit them, and walked to the altar. She has just looked at this bundle of incense, so there should be no more problems. Just as he was about to put the incense in place, he heard the madam say coldly, "Kneel down." Ling Chu made a move and his eyes became cold, but in the end he did not speak and turned around to walk to the futon beside him. She doesn't want to cause any trouble, she just wants to kneel down and worship her ancestors, that's all. The second madam saw that she did not dare to resist the Thai madam at all, and a look of schadenfreude appeared on her face. Ling Chu walked to the futon and saw that it was still clean. He bent his knees and knelt down. However, the next second, she watched the 3 incense sticks in her hand go out again. Then it was cut off in the middle. Ling Chu was completely stunned. While I was dazed, there was suddenly a ping-pong-pong sound in my ears. Looking up, his eyes widened instantly. The spiritual tablets that were originally neatly placed on the altar were all dumped on the altar. The lady who witnessed all this was also stunned. Like Ling Chu, she thought it was just an accident when Xiang Mi died. But the same thing happened one after another, making her suspicious. The first sister put on 3 sticks of incense. Not only were all 3 sticks extinguished, but the incense was also broken in the middle every time. Is this really the ancestors' dissatisfaction with Chu Ji? At the entrance of the ancestral hall, the moment she saw the spiritual tablets falling, Mrs. Dong's hand suddenly grabbed the handkerchief tightly. The second lady gloated over the misfortune and opened her mouth to ridicule. I said that the eldest girl must have behaved badly and made all the ancestors dissatisfied. Ling Chu was frowning in thought, already impatient with the second lady's repeated jumping around. His right hand made a quick gesture at the side of his body and flicked it in the direction of the second lady. The wife was upset when she saw that the second wife was still chattering, so she couldn't help but scolded her coldly, "Shut up." As soon as the words fell, the second lady's voice disappeared instantly. The whole ancestral hall became quiet. Everyone thought that the second lady was reprimanded by the dowager, so they shut up. But only the second wife knew otherwise. Because she suddenly found herself unable to make a sound or speak. The second madam did not believe in evil, but she opened and closed her lips several times, but could not make any sound. A panic suddenly surged in my heart. The more nervous and frightened the second lady became, the less able she found herself to speak. He was so frightened that he tightly grasped Dong beside him with both hands. Ms. Dong was completely immersed in her own thoughts at this time, and did not notice anything strange about the second lady. After she grabbed her sleeve, she shook it off without thinking. The second lady was shocked and angry after Ms. Dong shook her hand away. The third lady and Aunt Wen on the side glanced at her and saw that she looked shocked and angry, but they didn't take it to heart. Both of them thought that the second lady felt humiliated because she was reprimanded by the dowager, and could not get off the stage. I never thought that Ling Chu had done anything. The wife didn't pay much attention to the daughters-in-law at the door of the ancestral hall, and said to Ling Chu with a dark face, "Sister Chu, kowtow to your ancestors. From today on, you will stay in the ancestral hall and reflect on it." Boom. Before Mrs. Tai finished her words, a deafening thunder suddenly came from the sky. Everyone was startled by the sudden thunder. Subconsciously, they all turned their heads to look at the sky. However, what everyone found strange was that outside the ancestral hall, the sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. Ling Chu's dark gaze steadily returned from the clear sky outside the ancestral hall, and fell on the half-remaining sandalwood in his hand. After a pause, he turned to look at the spiritual tablets that were all lying on the altar table. She believed that ever since she was a child, she had never done anything to bring shame to the ancestors of the Ling family. Since she is right, she has a clear conscience. Throwing the remaining half of the sandalwood in his hand toward the paper burning pot aside, Ling Chu clapped his hands, propped himself up on the futon, and stood up. Hearing the commotion, the madam turned around and saw her standing upright in front of the altar table, her already black face turning even darker with anger. "Kneel down." Click. As soon as Mrs. Tai spoke her words, a dazzling white light suddenly struck down from high in the sky. Following this, there was another huge thunder blast. Has been frightening everyone to the point of being shaken, but at the same time, a strange thought suddenly arises in their hearts. Why does it feel like Na is objecting to the madam asking the eldest girl to kneel down in front of the ancestral spirit tablet? The blood on Dong's face suddenly faded away, leaving only a pale complexion. Before he could recover, Xiaoji, who was waiting outside the ancestral hall, suddenly burst in with a nervous look on his face. "Girl, the ancestral hall is flooded, run quickly." The people standing at the door subconsciously looked up at the top of the ancestral hall. Her expression suddenly changed. A large fire is rising on the upper right side of the ancestral hall. Aunt Wen's heart tightened, but she did not turn around and run away. Instead, she followed Xiaoji and rushed into the ancestral hall. She held the Tehu's arm and said, "Mrs. Tai, go quickly." Ling Chu had already smelled a strong burning smell, and regardless of the surprise in his heart, he was pulled out of the ancestral hall quickly by Xiaoji. When they were far away from the ancestral hall, everyone stopped and turned around. However, when they saw the blazing fire, the third lady and Aunt Wen both looked startled. The location where the fire broke out in the ancestral hall was actually the direction where the lightning struck just now. The Lingfu ancestral hall was burned down by fire from heaven. Thanks to Jiangnan Fueo, Shuer, 201710062015571126, and Yway0310 for their monthly votes. Thank you for the flower in the dream, walking together, 1204021853444862, Zeng, Yangliuan, Xiao Yingning, Jiangnan Fueo, Wind Chime, 20230521742110, 854*729, Why You Grow Old, National 114,514 Level Protected Waste, Begonia 838, White Clouds in the Sky L, Dream 595, Silver Boy, White Hat Who Likes to Wear Black, Prose. BA, Can't Think Out, Kingsha Makeup, 2023061958333531, 20230601621658, 609,325. 202201172206211129. Recommended vote support. At the same time, I would like to thank Xiaoxiang and Hengzhou for their supportive friends. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 144. Chapter 144. The second lady is mute. What happened? Why did the ancestral hall become damaged? Hearing that there was a fire in the ancestral hall, Ling Mao hurried over with his sons. He saw the wife and several daughters-in-law standing aside, questioning them with a dark face. However, no one answered his words. Seeing the fire getting bigger and bigger, knowing that the fire could no longer be extinguished, Ling Mao's heart became more and more angry. Who set the ancestral hall on fire? Although Ling Mao has been demoted from his official position by the emperor, he has been in a high position for many years, and his aura is still as strong as before. Ling Chu raised her eyes and glanced at her grandfather lightly. She was not frightened by his aura, but she didn't want to open her mouth and bear the anger. But the second lady, perhaps frightened by this momentum, suddenly blurted out, "The ancestral hall was burned down by fire from heaven." As soon as the words came out of her mouth, the second lady was instantly annoyed, as she accidentally said what she was muttering in her heart. But then she was stunned. How did her voice recover? However, before it was too late, Ling Mao shouted angrily at him, "What did you say?" Facing the father-in-law's cannibalistic gaze, the second lady trembled in her heart. She subconsciously reached out and pointed at Ling Chu, "It's the eldest girl." The thunder and fire was caused by the eldest girl. The second master, Ling Yao, was shocked when he heard what his wife said. From the corner of his eye, he noticed the dark faces of his father and elder brother, and he couldn't help but shout angrily, "Ms. Yang, what are you talking about?" Ling Yao knew that his wife, like everyone else in the family, was not happy with his niece, but he did not expect that his wife could say such ridiculous things. The niece is just a bad life, not the great of power. How could it cause Lihu to burn the ancestral hall? Perhaps seeing her husband and children coming, the second lady felt confident, and stimulated by the sarcastic smile on Ling Chu's face, the second lady's courage came back. "I'm not talking nonsense. It was the madam who called the eldest girl to the ancestral hall and asked her to offer incense to worship her ancestors. But the eldest girl lit 3 sticks of incense, and all 3 sticks were suddenly extinguished for no reason as soon as they were lit. The incense was cut off in the middle. Mrs. Tai asked the eldest girl to kneel down and kowtow to her ancestors again. Unexpectedly, as soon as the eldest girl knelt down on the futon, not only did all the spiritual tablets on the altar table fall over, but there was also a sudden thunder in the sky. The second time Mrs. Tai asked the eldest girl to kneel down, the ancestral hall was struck by thunder. If the eldest girl had not done something outrageous, The ancestors of the Ling family would not have refused her incense, and the ancestral hall would not have been burned down by thunder and fire. Ling Chu had been listening silently and did not speak to stop the second lady. Because this matter cannot be hidden at all, and there is no need to hide it. Ling Chu waited for the second lady to explain everything clearly, and then quietly used a gag spell on her. The second lady didn't know that she couldn't speak anymore, so she finished telling what happened. At this time, she only felt gloating about the misfortune. This girl will have to shed a layer of skin even if she doesn't die this time. If she hadn't helped Jin Yiwei to copy out the corrupt Tibetan silver, my father-in-law would not have been fired from his official position by the emperor. Now that the ancestral hall has been burned down again, I don't believe that this disaster star can still be safe. After hearing what the second lady said, Ling Mao frowned and asked the lady beside him, "Is what Yang said true?" The wife did not speak, she just nodded silently. It turned out that she saw Ling Chu contradicting her many times, and without her consent, she proposed to break off the engagement in front of Grandma Wang. The wife felt that she was really disrespectful, so she called her to the ancestral hall. The purpose is to teach her a lesson in front of the spiritual tablets of her ancestors, and then make her kneel in the ancestral hall to reflect, as a punishment. Who knew it would lead to such an unreasonable disaster? Although Mrs. Tai did not say that the thunder and fire was caused by Ling Chu, she could not help but feel suspicious at this time. If she had not called Ling Chu to the ancestral hall, wouldn't there have been a fire? Ling Mao looked at Ling Chu with complicated eyes. "Sister Chu, what do you have to say?" Ling Mao really didn't like this granddaughter. He thought that the money was hidden well enough that even the Jin Yiwei couldn't find it. Unexpectedly, I was slapped hard by this granddaughter who had just returned to Beijing. Because of the money, he was demoted to a commoner by the emperor and treated as an outcast by the other side. His career was ruined in this way. It is naturally impossible to say that there is no resentment in my heart. Ling Chu had not grown up in the mansion since she was a child. Although Ling Zong didn't have much affection for her, he saw that the second wife blamed her for the fire in the ancestral hall, and his wife was silent about it. Ling Zong couldn't help but frown. "Father, what did you ask Chu Ji to say?" "What my siblings said is just nonsense. Even though Chu Ji has a bad fate, she has never done anything wrong. It was just a coincidence that the ancestral hall was burned down by thunder and fire. How can we blame Chu Ji for this?" Ling Chu was surprised. She really didn't expect that her cheap father would speak up to defend her. Ling Mao was unmoved and scolded in a cold voice, "You still have rules in your eyes. My father didn't ask you anything. Just stand aside." Ling Zong frowned. He couldn't contradict his father in public anymore, so he had to secretly wink at Dong, gesturing for her to speak for Ling Chu. However, Mrs. Dong turned a blind eye to his hint, holding the handkerchief in her hands and lowering her eyes in silence. Ling Chu saw this in his eyes and felt no disturbance in his heart. He raised his head and looked directly at Ling Mao. "Father is right, what the second aunt said is just nonsense. If the ancestral hall was struck by thunder because the ancestors of the Ling family were dissatisfied, thus attracting punishment from heaven, and the second aunt became mute, was it also a punishment for her bad words and deeds by the ancestors of the Ling family?" The expression of gloating on the second lady's face froze, and she subconsciously wanted to retort. However, what frightened her was that she could not speak again. Seeing that the second lady opened and closed her mouth for a long time, but there was no sound, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Brother and sister Ling Luo and Ling Hui walked quickly to the second lady, pulled her sleeves and shouted, "Mother, mother, what's wrong with you?" Seeing their anxious faces, the second madam subconsciously wanted to speak to comfort them, but she couldn't make any sound at all. At this moment, the faces of everyone present changed. Ling Mao was so angry that his vision went dark, and he no longer bothered to question Ling Chu. Everyone should keep their mouths shut about what happened today. If anyone dares to leak a word, get out of the Ling family. As soon as the Ling mansion fell, the ancestral hall was destroyed by thunder and fire, and the daughter-in-law became mute. If even the slightest bit of news about this matter spreads, the Ling family will really have no foothold in the capital. Ling Mao threw up his sleeves and walked away. The wife could only look down and ordered her 3 sons to clean up the ruins of the ancestral hall by herself, and then hire craftsmen to rebuild the ancestral hall. The second lady covered her neck with her hands and glared at Ling Chu with resentment. Unexpectedly, she let this disaster escape and became mute herself. "Where is the ticket? Come to the bowl quickly. Will there be 10 monthly passes today? If not, I will ask again later." End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 145. Ling Chu looked like he had eyes on the back of his head. He suddenly turned his head and gave the second lady a mocking smile. The second lady was so frightened by the smile that she was shocked. A thought suddenly came to mind. Could it be that her inability to speak was caused by this disaster star secretly? Ling Chu was so frightened that his face changed when he saw her, and then he looked away. But she did not lift the silence spell on the second lady. Instead, she planned to make her mute for a period of time to prevent him from jumping in front of her every 3 days. The ancestral hall of Ling Mansion is an independent house. Although the fire was large, it did not spread to other places. The fire, which had been burning for so long, was extinguished, leaving only ruins at the scene. Ling Zone was about to take the second master and the third master to clean up, but was stopped by Ling Chu. "Dad, here are 200 taels of silver notes, you can use them to build an ancestral hall." Ling Chu took out 2 silver notes from his sleeves and handed them over. Ling Zone was stunned. He didn't expect his eldest daughter to be willing to spend money to build an ancestral hall for him after being insulted by the second lady. He was worried about the money to build the ancestral temple. Although he felt guilty in his heart, he hesitated for a while and took the banknote. "Sister Chu, you also know the situation in the house. My father will use this banknote first. I will return it to you after I make money." Ling Chu waved his hand. "No need. Although the fire in the ancestral hall was not caused by me, as a descendant of the Ling family, it is considered appropriate to contribute a share of the money. This is just one of the reasons. The most important thing is that she contributed money to build the ancestral hall. The ancestors of the Ling family have enjoyed her efforts and will definitely return some merit to her, which is also good for her health." Ms. Tai also didn't expect that Ling Chu would pay for the construction of the ancestral hall regardless of the previous grudges. "I couldn't help but regret that this granddaughter acted generously. It would be great if she didn't have the fate of punishing her 6 relatives." Ling Chu turned a blind eye to the complicated and unspeakable look in Ms. Tai's eyes, and she had no interest in paying attention to what she was thinking. After giving the banknote to Ling Zone, he took Xiaoji back to his yard. Her injuries were not healed yet, and she was even more exhausted after all the hard work. After returning to the yard, she asked Xiaoji to cook a medicine for her to drink, and immediately lay down on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. "After being raised at the house for a few days, my health is finally getting better." On this day, Ling Chu took Xiaoji to U Street again. Not long after setting up the stall at the original location, an aunt carrying a basket came over with a smile on her face. "Xiangwu, I finally found you." Ling Chu raised his head and saw the person coming, and smiled. "Auntie, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you look a lot better. It seems that you have been having a good time recently." This aunt often came to her for fortune telling because she often had minor accidents. "Xiangwu, your hexagrams are really clever. That day you calculated that I would be in danger of a disaster, and told me to be careful to avoid high places. To tell you the truth, I didn't quite believe it at first, but I didn't expect it to happen the next day. It worked." The aunt was probably excited, and her voice became louder without realizing it, attracting many people to gather around Ling Chu's stall. Some people couldn't help but ask, "Auntie, did you really encounter some kind of disaster?" "No, I finished my fortune telling that day, and the next day after I returned, I was picking vegetables in the yard. I was busy for a while, and was about to go to the kitchen to drink some water. Unexpectedly, before I could reach the door, I felt like I was being held in my arms. The fire scalded it. I quickly stopped to check and found that one corner of the peace charm I bought from the fairy had turned black. I was wondering when a tile suddenly fell from the roof. Had I not happened to stop and check at that time, the tiles would have smashed my head and caused bleeding. This aunt is still a little scared when she thinks about it now. She is so old, and it would be uncomfortable if she was hit by a tile. Fairy aunt, it's really thanks to you. I've always had some accidents in the past month, but since I wore your peace charm, nothing has happened to me, the aunt said, holding her hands in her hands with a look of gratitude. He handed over the basket and said, "Fairy girl, if you hadn't helped me avoid these disasters, my aunt would have suffered. These are the eggs laid by my old hen, and they are a thank you gift from my aunt." Ling Chu smiled and stretched out his hand to block the situation. "Don't be polite, ma'am. You gave me gold for your fortune telling, and you also gave money for the peace talisman. There is no need to give any more gifts of thanks." This aunt was sincerely grateful and insisted on giving the egg to her despite Ling Chu's refusal. Ling Chu had no choice but to accept it in the end, but in return, she gave the aunt a peace charm. The aunt happily accepted it and gave Ling Chu another 20 pennies, but Ling Chu only took her a symbolic penny. The aunt took the peace charm and left. A woman who was watching left and sat down on the mat in front of Ling Chu. "Xianggu, help me tell my fortune." Ling Chu raised his eyes and glanced at the other party, then asked quietly, "What do you want to do?" "Xianggu, my family built a new kitchen at the beginning of the year, but I don't know what happened. Since the kitchen was built, something has happened almost every month. Please help me figure out what happened." Ling Chu made a hexagram based on the location of the woman's house and kitchen, combined with her birth date and horoscope. "Does water leak out of your kitchen often?" Yes, that's right." The woman was a little doubtful when she heard the aunt said that the fairy girl's fortune telling was effective, but she didn't expect the Taoist nun to figure it out all of a sudden. The woman couldn't wait to ask, "Xianggu has figured it out. What's wrong with my family?" "Your kitchen is built in the northwest, which conflicts with the orientation of the hut, creating an evil spirit. This is why your kitchen often leaks water." "So that's the case. Is there any way to deal with it?" "Yes, if you don't want to demolish the kitchen and latrine and rebuild it, you can seal the door of your kitchen and open a new door on the west side. Then build a wall half a foot in front of the latrine to close the latrine. Block the door, which can dispel the evil spirit." The woman frowned. "Really?" Ling Chu nodded. "You can try to see if it's true. If you change it according to my words and something goes wrong, you can smash my stall." "Okay, let me go back and give it a try." The woman took out 20 coins and put it on the small table, turned around and wanted to leave. But he was stopped by Ling Chu. "Wait a minute, the hexagram gold is 100 coins. The woman immediately frowned and said, "What, 100 coins? What's the difference between you, a Taoist girl, and robbing money?" "My price is worth it." Ling Chu frowned, but still warned in a gentle voice, "Your kitchen must be renovated as soon as possible, otherwise water leaks will occur frequently. If it takes too long, big trouble will happen." "Humph, how could something big happen?" "I'm afraid you want to ask for more gold for fortune telling and deliberately made it up to scare me. The Taoist priest in Kongsugwan only charges 20 gold for fortune telling. You can't ask for extravagant prices. Just 20 gold, that's a lot, no?" The woman dropped these words and turned around and left in a hurry. Ling Chu was not annoyed and put the 20 coins into a jar beside him. "This woman wants to take advantage, but sometimes she regrets it. Thanks for the monthly support of Stab 828 and Left Heartbeat. Thanks to China Fuse, Life is Bright. Unthinkable, Yangliuan, Jiangnan Fueo, Langlang to Guangzhou, Phi, National 114,514 Level Protected Waste, Picking a Pen to Remember the Future, Smile Now, Snowman and Doll, Silver Star, Thorny Heart 828 202201172206211129, Haitang 838, Haitang. CE, Mengliwa and other book friends recommended votes to support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 146. As soon as Ling Chu put away the 20 coins, a familiar voice hurriedly approached from a distance. "Oh, fairy girl, it's a good thing you haven't left yet." Looking up, Ling Chu had a surprised look on his face. No wonder it sounded familiar. Isn't this the lady who thanked her with eggs just now? Seeing her go and come back, Ling Chu asked curiously, "Madam, why are you here again? Is there something wrong?" The aunt nodded with a smile on her face, pointed to a woman following her and said, "This is my maternal cousin. She came to my house today to visit relatives. After hearing my story, she also wanted to ask you for help in fortune telling." Auntie knew that Ling Chu could only tell 3 fortunes a day, and she didn't know if they were late today. "Xiangwu, I wonder if I can still tell fortunes today." Ling Chu smiled and nodded, "Okay." The trip was not in vain. The aunt looked happy and immediately grabbed her cousin and asked her to sit down on the horse. Seeing the woman's sad face and a somewhat unnatural expression, Ling Chu asked her softly, "What do you want to do, aunt?" "Sister Rong, hurry up and speak." Seeing that her cousin was hesitant to speak, the aunt couldn't help but said hastily, "Forget it, I'll tell you for you." The cousin did not stop her. The aunt immediately turned to Ling Chu and said, "My cousin has never done fortune telling in her life. She didn't believe in this before. Please don't be offended." Ling Chu shook his head, "It doesn't matter. Not everyone in this world believes in occult arts." Seeing that the Taoist girl didn't have any complaints, the aunt breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Xiangwu, it's like this. Something strange happened at my cousin's house recently." Just as the aunt was about to continue talking, her cousin's son Rong suddenly spoke up for some reason, "Let me do the talking." Seeing that she was willing to speak, the aunt nodded quickly, "Okay, you know your own affairs best, so it's best for you to talk about it." Ling Chu also smiled and nodded slightly, signaling son to continue. "Things have to start from 2 months ago. At the beginning, one of the chickens raised by son's family died for no reason. Although she felt distressed, she didn't think much about it. But what she didn't expect was that 2 more of her chickens died the next day. Mrs. Sun thought that those chickens were infected with the disease and was worried that something would happen to the remaining chickens, so she bought medicine and gave it to the remaining chickens. Unexpectedly, the medicine was of no use, and all the chickens died within a few days. After thinking about it, Mrs. Sun felt that all the chickens were infected with the disease from the beginning, which was why the remaining chickens could not be saved even after being given medicine. After feeling distressed for a few days, Mrs. Sun cleaned up all the dead chickens and cleaned the chicken coop, and then bought 10 chicks to raise. However, what I didn't expect was that all those chicks died overnight. M's Sun doesn't know what the problem is, and is worried that something will happen if she buys chickens again. So she decided to raise ducks instead. Worried that she would not be able to feed them, Mrs. Sun did not dare to buy more. She only bought 2 half-sized ducks. After raising them carefully for a few days, M's Sun was finally relieved to see that the 2 ducks were safe and sound. Unexpectedly, she was worried too early. When she got up the next day, she found that the 2 ducks had died silently in the henhouse. Sun did not give up and bought many chickens and ducks one after another to raise. However, no matter how much she bought, she still died completely. Her husband saw that he could no longer keep the chickens and ducks, so he demolished the chicken coop and converted it into a pig pen. Then he carefully selected a strong little piglet to raise. But what the whole family didn't expect was that the little piglet would not escape its bad luck and died in less than a day. Sun's heart ached and she shed tears every day at home. Her son was worried that her anger would break her body, so he took her to Beijing to get married. After hearing about the Sun family, the aunt took her to look for Ling Chu. After hearing what happened, Ling Chu took out copper coins and turtle shells and gave Sun a calculation. As soon as the hexagram came out, Ling Chu's face darkened. Seeing the Taoist nun's expression change, the aunt and Mrs. Sun's heart suddenly lifted, and they asked uneasily, "Xianggu, have you figured it out yet?" Ling Chu nodded solemnly and asked Sun, "Was the chicken coop in your home built before the accident?" Sun was surprised. She didn't expect that the Taoist nun could even calculate this. "My chicken coop was originally built in the yard, and it smelled bad. I often stepped on chicken feces when I walked in and out. There is a bamboo forest not far from my backyard. I saw that the area was open, so I built a new chicken coop there. Later, when it became clear that the chickens and ducks could no longer be kept, it was converted into a pig pen." "What's the matter, fairy aunt? Could it be that there's something wrong with my place?" Ling Chu frowned and looked at Sun, and said coldly, "It's not just inappropriate. You built a pigsty on someone's graveyard. It would be strange if nothing happens." As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, an angry shout suddenly came, "You Taoist nun are talking nonsense. There is no grave in the land behind my house." Hearing the familiar voice, Mrs. Sun turned around in surprise. "Datang, why are you here? The visitor is Sun's son." "Mom, how can you believe these nonsense? There is some kind of cemetery in the mountains behind our house. This Taoist girl is a liar." At first glance, although M's son didn't think Ling Chu was a liar, what her son said was true. "Taoist sister, there is indeed no cemetery in the back hill of my house. Could it be that the calculation was wrong?" Before Ling Chu had time to reply, Sun's son had already helped her up. "Mom, we have been out for such a long time. It's time to go back. Otherwise, we may not be able to finish the work at home." M's son originally wanted Ling Chu to tell her fortune again, but her son hurriedly pulled her away from the stall, and even the aunt didn't stop them. Seeing that M's son hadn't paid the hexagram money yet, the aunt could only take out 100 coins and put it on the table. Recalling what Ling Chu had just said, the aunt said with a guilty look on her face, "Xianggu, my nephew is not sensible, so please don't be as knowledgeable as him." This was not the first time he was regarded as a liar. Ling Chu shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter." Seeing that she was not angry, the aunt felt relieved. "Xianggu, is there really something wrong with the pigsty at my cousin's house? But as far as I know, my nephew did not lie. I have also been to the land behind his house. I've seen that there is indeed no cemetery there. There is no graveyard, which does not mean that there are no dead people there. If you don't believe it, ask them to dig up the pigsty and take a look, and you will know whether it is true or false." For the sake of the 100 Wenghua gold, Ling Chu had to remind the aunt, "Tell M's son as soon as possible and ask her to remember to tear down the pig pen and restore it to its original appearance. I also have to buy a fragrant candle paper to burn the deceased and make a good crime with him, otherwise something will happen. By then, it won't just be a few poultry that will die, but people will die." The aunt's face suddenly changed with shock. Although she didn't know whether the dead people were really buried there, seeing that the Taoist nun said it was so serious, she felt that it was better to believe that this kind of thing existed than to believe that it didn't exist. Auntie was afraid that M's son would go far away with her son, So she hurriedly left Ling Chu and chased after Sun and her son in the direction they left. Why were there so few votes yesterday? Kk. The author has fainted in the toilet from crying. Where is the ticket? Come on, come on. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 147. After the ant left, Ling Chu was leaning against the wall and falling asleep, when he suddenly heard someone shouting Xiangwu. Ling Chu opened his eyes and saw an uncle standing in front of the stall. What surprised her was that this uncle had a sense of filial piety. But you want fortune telling? Ling Chu saw him looking at her with a complicated expression, but he didn't speak, so she had to break the silence first. The uncle still looked hesitant to speak. Ling Chu frowned and said, "There is only one hexagram left today. Each hexagram is worth 100 coins, no two prices." The uncle didn't speak. Ling Chu didn't know what he was struggling with, so he simply closed his eyes to rest. At this time, the uncle finally spoke, "Xiangwu, did my brother come to you for fortune telling a few days ago?" Seeing Ling Chu's confused look, the uncle hurriedly said, "My name is Zhao Lefu, my brother is Zhao Leguang." Ling Chu turned over things in his mind and quickly remembered that Zhao Leguang was the man with a lot of money and a weak life. "Yes, he did tell me a fortune." Zhao Lefu's expression suddenly became complicated again. "Does fairy lady know that Zhao Leguang is dead?" Ling Chu frowned. "How did you die?" The last time Zhao Leguang came to her for fortune telling, she didn't see that he was in danger of death, so he wouldn't die so suddenly. Unless he didn't listen to her and forcibly kept the windfall. As expected. Zhao Lefu said, "A few days ago, he won a large sum of money in Changelfang, but he was found dead in a remote alley on the third night. Although his destiny is not to save money, it is expected that nothing will happen to him did he forcefully keep the money he won." Zhao Lefu shook his head, "I don't know either. A few days ago, Lai Guang once told me that he asked a Taoist nun in Yuja for a fortune-telling, saying that he had a fortune and was too weak to save money, but he didn't believe it. He also said that he would find another Taoist temple to ask for a talisman. I tried to persuade him a few words at that time, and thought he had given up the idea of seeking amulets. But I just heard from my sister-in-law yesterday that a talisman was found on his body." As Zhao Lefu spoke, he took out a yellow talisman from his sleeve pocket and handed it to Ling Chu. Ling Chu could tell at a glance, this is a wealth-protecting talisman. I once advised him that he has a weak destiny. If he keeps the windfall by force, he will die. Before Ling Chu finished speaking, an old lady suddenly rushed over, "Since you know that my son will die, why did you give him this harmful talisman?" Hearing the familiar voice, Zhao Lefu quickly turned his head and asked, "Mom, why are you here?" However, the old lady ignored him and swung the crutch in her hand towards Ling Chu's guatan. "I'll beat you to death, you fake Taoist nun. You killed my son, you won't have a good death." There were already people coming and going on Imperial Street, and the movement here immediately attracted a lot of people to watch. Ling Chu frowned, seeing the cane hitting his face, and was about to stop it with a hammer. Zhao Lefu had already taken the lead and stopped the old lady's cane. "Mom, stop it." The old lady didn't expect her son to stop her at all, and she was so angry that she cursed, "Son, you are so confused. Your brothers were killed by this fake Taoist nun. Why are you still protecting her if you don't seek revenge from her?" Facing the old lady's indiscriminate curses, Zhao Lefu looked helpless and said, "Mom, what happened in Leguang has nothing to do with this Taoist nun." The more Zhao Lefu defended himself, the angrier the old lady became. The crutch was grabbed by her son, and she couldn't it back. She could only turn around and curse at Ling Chu, "You monster, my little son is fine, but you have already killed him, and you still don't give up. Now you are using magic to kill him. My eldest son is also obsessed with right and wrong, and I will fight with you." The old lady cursed and bumped into Ling Chu. Zhao Lefa was so frightened that he quickly threw away the crutch in his hand and rushed over to hug her. "Mom, you wrongly blamed the fairy. What happened in Guangzhou has nothing to do with the fairy." Seeing that the old lady still wanted to seek revenge on Ling Chu, Zhao Lefa was angry and helpless, and his tone couldn't help but become louder. Now the old lady was even more annoyed. She felt that the Taoist girl must have used witchcraft, otherwise Zhao Lefa would not have ignored his brothers and his wife and insisted on protecting the witchcraft. The old lady was so angry that she scolded and beat Zhao Lefa hard, trying to wake him up so as not to continue to be confused by the evil way. Zhao Lefa was already uneasy when he heard others pointing fingers at the Taoist nun. In addition, her mother's dirty words frightened him even more. Afraid that Ling Chu would be angry, Zhao Lefa blocked his mother behind him and turned to apologize to Ling Chu. "Please, Madame Xiangwu, don't be as knowledgeable as my mother. Since my brother's violent death, my mother has been so shocked that she has become delirious. What she said cannot be true, so please don't take it to heart. I will take her back now and come back another day to apologize to the fairy." Zhao Lefa was not like his mother, who dared to make a fuss with the Taoist girl in the street. He knew that those who possessed mystical skills had abilities that ordinary people could not describe. If you make them angry, there are many ways to make ordinary people like them lose their lives. Zhao Lefa was afraid of what Ling Chu would do to him and the old lady, so he couldn't wait to drag his mother back. Ling Chu stood up and stopped the two of them. "Wait a minute, the matter hasn't been explained clearly yet, you can't just leave like this." Even though Zhao Lefa was quite reasonable, people who didn't know about the old lady's commotion thought she was responsible for Zhao Leguang's death. If she didn't explain the matter clearly in public, but just let them leave like this, wouldn't the name of the evil spirit be firmly attached to her head? Who would dare to come to her for fortune-telling in the future? This not only ruined her reputation and cut off her financial resources, but more importantly, it cost her life. Without merit, she would not be able to survive her life. "Xiangwu, Xiangwu, my mother is old and confused. My death has nothing to do with you. Please don't be as knowledgeable as her." After Zhao Leguang's death, he has been reluctant to leave his family. When he knew that the old lady came to look for Ling Chu, he followed her out of curiosity. It's just that he didn't expect that his mother was here to make trouble. When he saw Ling Chu stopping his brother and his mother with a cold face, he thought she was going to deal with them. Immediately frightened, he knelt down and kowtowed to Ling Chu to apologize. But Ling Chu didn't even give him a glance. If this idiot hadn't disobeyed advice, why would these bad things have happened? She almost couldn't help but give him a severe whipping with the Bodhi whip. Ling Chu walked up to Zhao Lefu and his son with a sullen face, and said in a loud voice, "Old lady, your son is gone. I can understand your grief. But your son's death really has nothing to do with me." The old lady didn't want to hear Ling Chu's explanation at all, and stared at her with hatred. "Don't even think about making excuses. My son was killed by you, monster. He was originally good, but he only got into trouble after he asked you to tell his fortune." Being repeatedly scolded by the old lady as a demon made Ling Chu angry no matter how good-tempered he was. Thanks to 20231617000195 Jiangnan Fueo, 1209082031111929, 201906050146500279, share 125 and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to The Flower in the Dream, Hua Prose. B.A., Tian Yulan, White Hat Who Likes to Wear Black, 202206220817060076, Kingsha Makeup, * Silver Star, National 114,514 Level Protected Waist, Phoenix, Blank Memory 12,138, White Clouds in the Sky L, Wind Chimes, Zhao Yilanzian, Haitang. CE, 1204021853444862. Recommendations from book friends such as * Carrot. Carat carat o carat asterisk, Tibi Yanfu, 202201172206211129, and Haitang 838. Also thank Hungziu and all the book friends who support Hungziu. Thank you again for your support. Every vote you give is precious to me. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 148. Old lady, you didn't get your son's talisman from me. Ling Chu took out a wealth-protecting talisman with a cold face and compared it with the one in Zhao Lefu's hand. The talisman in her hand is slightly smaller than the one in Zhao Lefu's hand, and the color of the talisman paper is darker. Ling Chu opened two more talisman papers in front of everyone for everyone to see. Not only do these two talisman papers have different fonts, but they also use different cinnabar. Those onlookers took a closer look and found that the two talismans were indeed different. Although they could not understand the words on the talisman paper, the talisman in the Taoist nun's hand had simple and smooth fonts. The cinnabar used was bright red in color, had a good luster, and exuded a sense of agility. But on the one in Zhao Lefu's hand, the characters on it are not only arrogant, but also the color of the cinnabar is a bit dark red, giving people the feeling of floating on the surface, and the luster is also dim. Ling Chu waited for everyone to see clearly, then walked back to the stall, took out a blank piece of yellow paper, and also took out the brush and cinnabar, and drew a wealth-protecting amulet on the spot. Now everyone can see clearly, this Taoist lady is indeed not lying. These two talismans look similar, but in fact they are not the same at all. Yes, old lady, you must have made a mistake. That talisman does not belong to this Taoist nun at all. You made a mistake. Old lady, you have found the wrong person. Your son bought a fake talisman and killed himself. He was confused, and you are also confused. You didn't even find the culprit. Ling Chu frowned after hearing this. Although these people were speaking to defend her, they were wrong. Old lady, although the talisman your son requested is different from mine, it is not fake. Everyone present was stunned, not understanding what she meant. The old lady was also puzzled. It's impossible. If the talisman is real, then why did my son die? Ling Chu just asked everyone to see the talisman paper just to let them see the difference between the two talisman papers, not to prove that the one in Zhao Lefu's hand was fake. She has always said what she wants and will not deliberately slander others just to prove her innocence. The wealth-protecting talisman that Zhao Leguang requested is indeed genuine. There is nothing wrong with the talisman. The problem is his fortune. When your son came to me for fortune telling, I already warned him that his fortune was weak and he could not bear it. If you try to keep the windfall, you will die. But he refused to listen and insisted on asking for such a wealth-protecting talisman. Now that he has lost his life, he can only blame himself. The old lady was stunned for a moment. Her son was not harmed by this Taoist nun, but she couldn't blame the person who sold the talisman to her son. After all, there is nothing wrong with the other person's talisman. She can't settle the score with others just because they sold real talisman paper. Then her son's death would be in vain? The old lady suddenly collapsed on the ground and burst into tears. Zhao Lefu also squatted aside, choking and wiping tears. The onlookers could not help but feel sympathy when they saw the mother and son crying miserably. Although Ling Chu was annoyed that the old lady called her a monster indiscriminately, now that she was crying so hard that she couldn't say anything else. There was originally another hexagram today, but now like this, Ling Chu doesn't want to stay any longer. He simply turned around and returned to the stall, started to pack his things, and prepared to go home. Zhao Leguang's ghost saw his mother and brother crying sadly, and he also wiped his tears aside. He is now so ruined that his intestines are green. The Taoist nun is right. There is a time in life that must be there, but there is no time in life. Don't force it. Had he listened to this Taoist nun and not forcibly kept the money he won from gambling, he would still be living well now. Although he is not rich, at least he will not lose his life. Thinking of his father, wife, and young children at home, Zhao Liguang slapped himself hard. A few slaps. Seeing Ling Chu packing his things and getting ready to leave, Zhao Liguang hurriedly floated towards her. With a plop, he knelt down. Xiangwu, Xiangwu, I was wrong, I shouldn't have been so blinded by lard that I thought you were a liar and didn't listen to you. Zhao Liguang kowtowed and slapped himself in the face. Xiangwu, I was wrong, I was blind, please forgive me this time. Ling Chu sighed, he had known this, why did he do it in the first place? Seeing Zhao Liguang blocking her way, she waved to him angrily, motioning to go aside. Even though his mother made a scene because of this idiot. But he is already dead, so what else can be done? You can't just beat him up for this. Seeing that Ling Chu was not blamed, Zhao Liguang was overjoyed. Although he is dead, he still has a family of young and old, and he is really afraid that the Taoist nun will be angry with his relatives because of this. Seeing that Ling Chu was about to leave, Zhao Liguang hurriedly floated in front of her again. Seeing her glaring over impatiently, he quickly smiled and said, Xiangwu, can I ask you to do me a favor? Ling Chu paused in his steps, what are you busy with? Today I did not complete the calculation of the 3 hexagrams, and I lost a piece of silver. It would be good if I could earn some merit. Let's talk about it first. It's okay to ask me for help, but I have to collect money. Zhao Liguang originally just tried to ask for help, but he didn't expect that the Taoist nun was actually willing to help, and he nodded with joy. I understand, collecting money is the right thing to do. The onlookers haven't dispersed yet, and Ling Chu doesn't want others to think she's crazy, talking to herself in the empty air. Tell Zhao Liguang softly, tell me, what help do you need from me? Murder and arson are things that go against the laws of nature. No matter how much money I get, I won't do it. Zhao Liguang smiled bitterly. Although he lost his life because of the talisman paper, he still had resentment in his heart. But he couldn't go to the Taoist priest of Kongsugwan to settle accounts because of this. After all, the talismans he sold were genuine. The Taoist priest originally said that he was born with a lot of wealth and a weak body, and was not blessed to receive the windfall. But he didn't believe it and insisted on buying the talisman. Remembering that he had given the Taoist 30 taels of silver in order to get the Taoist priest to sell him the talisman, Zhao Liguang regretted it and slapped himself again. Ling Chu. It is indeed true to call him a fool. The most people can do is spend money to buy suffering, but this fool is buying death. Zhao Liguang had a problem in his heart. If you want to help me, please tell me quickly. Ling Chu no longer wanted to stay with this fool, lest his IQ would be lowered. Xiangwu, I won several times in Changelfang before and hid part of the money, but my family doesn't know about it. Could you please tell them for me? She thought it was some kind of trouble, but unexpectedly she just conveyed a few words. This is equivalent to giving her a piece of merit for free. Where is the money? I buried him under the 3rd big tree behind my pigsty. I am willing to pay 30 taels to ask the fairy to help me inform my family. The old lady cried a lot and realized that she had wrongly blamed Ling Chu, so she hurriedly came over to apologize. Ling Chu did not refuse. After she finished apologizing, she said, I just made a fortune telling that your son buried a sum of money under the 3rd big tree behind your pig pen. The old lady was stunned for a moment. After she was happy, she quickly thanked Ling Chu. You're welcome. I charge a fee for fortune telling, and the fortune is 5 taels. I've been feeling really depressed these past 2 days. I finally applied for a recommendation spot, but because the various tickets and subscriptions were not ideal recently, and I couldn't meet the requirement of 10,000 words of updates per day, I had to change my recommendation spot to someone else. Book. I'm really going to faint from crying now. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 149. The old lady didn't expect that her son had hidden a sum of money at home, and she didn't expect that the Taoist nun she had just scolded so harshly would actually be willing to help them tell fortunes and find the money. The old man in the family has been bedridden all year round and takes medicine, and the younger daughter-in-law is also soaking in medicine jars all day long. In addition, Li Guang died suddenly and unexpectedly, which made the already poor family even worse. Knowing that her youngest son had hidden a sum of money, the old lady breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but wipe away her tears. Zhao Lefu thanked Ling Chu hurriedly, took out his silver and paid the hexagram gold, and then helped the old lady go back. Zhao Liguang's ghost did not expect that he had promised 30 taels as a reward, but the Taoist nun only received 5 taels. After thanking Ling Chu profusely, she drifted away. Ling Chu gained merit and was in a better mood. Xiaoji happened to come to take her back to her home. After entering the house, Ling Chu hesitated for a moment, but for the sake of peace, he decided to go and ask for a greeting. Anyway, it was just a matter of words. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, he saw everyone sitting around the madam, chatting lively. Seeing her come in, the scene fell silent. The second lady Su became mute and was not present today. However, the third lady said, "Hey, the eldest lady is finally back." Ling Chu glanced at the third lady and didn't want to pay much attention to her. He just said softly and stepped forward to greet the third lady. Mrs. Tai put down the teacup in her hand and asked in a deep voice, "Sister Chu, you went to set up a stall to tell fortunes again today? Do you really not want that reputation?" Compared to the importance of reputation and life, Ling Chu knew very well. She came over to say hello just to be polite and didn't want to argue about this topic anymore. She was planning to just say a few perfunctory words and then go back to rest. Unexpectedly, the system suddenly sounded like crazy in my mind. Lived. Drop. Drop. Warning host. Warn the host. Warn the host. Level 1 danger detected. Please host be on guard. Ling Chu's expression suddenly changed. Before he could realize what the danger was, the system's sharp alarms sounded in his mind one after another. Diddy diddy, the host's luck has been taken away. Diddy diddy, the host's merits have been robbed. Ding. The host's life is in danger. The system's alarm was still sounding, but Ling Chu's vision went dark and he fell down. Xiaoji was standing quietly behind Ling Chu with her eyes lowered. Seeing that she didn't reply, she felt a little worried. She quietly raised her eyes and saw Ling Chu fainting. She was so frightened that she rushed towards him. It's just that Xiaoji was unprepared. In her haste, she failed to help Ling Chu and was even knocked down by her. Fortunately, at the last moment, Ling Chu's head was hugged by Xiaoji, so she didn't hit the ground. Girl, what's wrong with you? Wake up quickly." Xiaoji hugged Ling Chu's body and called out in shock. It's just that Ling Chu couldn't hear it at this moment. Her consciousness sank rapidly, and in her daze, she seemed to see a soft light emitting from the system, wrapping the protective jade pendant she was wearing in her collar. But in the blink of an eye, the jade pendant was absorbed by the system. Before he completely lost his mind, Ling Chu heard a faint voice in his head. Ding. Activate protection. Xiaoji didn't know why her girl fainted suddenly. Seeing that she had not responded, she turned to Ms. Dong anxiously and said, "Madam, please call the doctor quickly." The third lady glanced at Xiaoji casually, and said in a strange way, "Hey, the eldest lady has fainted long ago, but why did she faint when the madam asked her?" The implication is that Ling Chu pretended to faint in order to escape the punishment of the dowager. Xiaoji was so angry that her heart ached. Her girl's face was frighteningly pale. How could she be pretending? It's just that this is not the time to argue, saving people is the most important thing. When Xiaoji saw Mr. Dong still sitting there drinking tea, he couldn't help but urge again, "Madam, please." Mrs. Dong put the teacup in her hand on the table with a bang, looked over with sharp eyes, and said coldly, "No need to make a fuss, your girl has been weak since she was a child, maybe she was tired outside. Just help her back and rest for a while." Xiaoji stared at Mr. Dong in disbelief, her heart trembled for Ling Chu. How could there be such a cold mother in the world? "I saw my daughter fainted with my own eyes, but I wasn't even worried at all. I didn't even want to call a doctor." Aunt Wen originally thought Ling Chu was pretending to faint, but when she saw her pale face, she couldn't help but frown. Looking at the eldest girl, "I don't look like she is fainting from exhaustion, madam, please hurry up and invite a doctor into the house." Mrs. Dong glared at Aunt Wen angrily, "Doctor, please speak lightly. Don't you have an idea of what's going on in the house?" Mrs. Tai also didn't want to see anything happen to Ling Chu. After all, she still wanted to rely on her to form a marriage. But before she could ask Dong to call a doctor, after hearing her words, she subconsciously swallowed the words that came to her mouth. There is indeed little money in the mansion now. It was already unable to make ends meet. The ancestral hall was burned down, and now it will cost a lot of money to rebuild it. The wife hesitated for a while, then raised her voice and called the maid waiting outside the door to come in. "The eldest girl is a little tired. Please help her back. Xiaoji, you and Xiangju, the maid, are taking good care of you. Don't neglect it." Xiaoji felt a chill in my heart again. She finally understood why the girl was so indifferent to the family. These blood relatives did not care about the girl as much as she, a servant. Xiaoji was not angry, but she could not contradict the dowager, lest someone take advantage of the girl's unconsciousness and use this as a reason to drive her out of the house. The girl is unconscious now. If she is kicked out of the house and Lu Xiangju is left alone, she may not be able to protect her. Xiaoji stopped begging Dong to ask for a doctor, and worked together with the maid to help Ling Chu back to the courtyard. Lu Xiangju was cleaning the yard. When she saw Ling Chu being helped back by Xiaoji, she threw away the broom and rushed over. "Why did the girl faint? Don't ask so many questions now. You can help the girl into the bedroom quickly. I'll go find a doctor for the girl." Lu Xiangju subconsciously wanted to ask the doctor to get the wife's consent, but Xiaoji hurriedly handed Ling Chu into her hands, turned around and ran away. She had no choice but to help Ling Chu into the house with a worried look on her face. After the little maid left, Lu Xiangju fetched a basin of water and wiped Ling Chu's face while anxiously waiting for Xiaoji to invite the doctor back. "I just didn't expect that the summer solstice would come back soon. Why are you alone, doctor?" Xiaoji's face was grim and her voice choked with sobs. "The gatekeeper won't let me out." Lu Xiangju was anxious. "If I don't let you out, go and ask the madam or the madam. Please, it's no use. They all said that the girl is just tired and just needs a rest, and they won't let me call a doctor." Lu Xiangju's expression changed. Do they refuse to hire a doctor for the girl because they want to wait until something happens to the girl so that they can change the marriage to another girl? Xiaoji felt bad and couldn't call a doctor, so they had to find a way on their own. "Stop talking about this, I will guard the girl. You go and fry the medicine that the girl usually takes. I hope the girl can wake up after drinking the medicine." Thanks to WX Yang Mi Mei, Jiangnan Fueo, Frozen Wing Dance, The Pain of Parting in the World of Mortals for Half a Lifetime, Self-Knowledge of Warmth and Coldness. Supported by monthly tickets from Book Friends. Thanks to Potato Burnt Potato, Yangliu Bank, Zeng, Kingshit Shuang, 202-303-2718. Ad, White Clouds in the Sky L, 854-729, Mimi Yang 98, blank memory 12138, // Don't Cry, Don't make trouble, don't show off. 120402185344862, country 114,514 level protection waste, U2102544133, clear water and clear lotus. Add, exquisite clear heart. AE, 609,325, China Fuse, daily little confusion, 2023-0306195833531, 20230601621658, Pros. BA, 202201172206211129, 202-308-08769. B. Bingling. Waiting for recommendation votes from book friends. At the same time, I would like to thank Hungziu and the friends who support Hungziu. Hope everyone who votes and subscribes will become a little expert in making money. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 150. In the bedroom. At this time, a day and a night had passed since Ling Chu fainted. The two maids, Xiaoji and Lu Xiangju, stayed on the bed fully clothed and took care of her personally. The two of them stared at the girl lying silently on the bed with haggard faces. Although they prayed countless times in their hearts, she still showed no sign of waking up. The two maids felt more and more uneasy. They didn't know what happened to Ling Chu. Although he didn't have a fever, he was still unconscious. Lu Xiangju's eyes were red. Xiaoji, look at the girl, I will cook another medicine. After staying up all day and night, Xiaoji's voice became hoarse, but she still didn't go to rest. She just whispered, go and move quickly. Lu Xiangju nodded vigorously and quickly walked out of the bedroom. It didn't take long for the fried medicine to be brought in. Xiaoji quickly sat on the bed, helped Ling Chu up, and half leaned on her. Lu Xiangju held the bowl in one hand and scooped out a spoonful of medicine with a spoon in the other hand, blew it gently, and then fed it to Ling Chu's mouth. However, Ling Chu, who was in a coma, had almost no ability to swallow, and most of the spoonful of medicine flowed out from his mouth. Xiaoji pursed her lips, supported Ling Chu, and with one free hand, picked up the handkerchief and wiped the concoction away from her mouth. Lu Xiangju scooped up another spoonful of medicine and continued feeding. In this way, the two of them worked together to give Ling Chu medicine. But seeing more and more medicine leaking out, the tears in Lu Xiangju's eyes fell down with just a few mouthfuls. Xiaoji also felt extremely uncomfortable. Now that they had no father or mother, they relied on Ling Chu to survive. Everyone in the Ling mansion is so indifferent to the girl who is their closest blood relative. And they were just two insignificant little maids. They couldn't imagine what would happen to them if something happened to Ling Chu. Xiaoji carefully put Ling Chu back on the bed and said to Lu Xiangju in a dumb voice, "Don't cry. The girl's clothes are stained with the concoction. Please quickly change her clothes to something clean. I'll beg the madam again, no matter what she does this time, no matter what, I must call a doctor for the girl." Lu Xiangju also knew that crying was useless, but she couldn't help but feel sorry for the girl. She has been sleeping for a day and a night. No one has called the doctor for the girl, and no one in the house has even paid any attention to her. Lu Xiangju wiped her tears with her hands and said to Xiaoji in a hoarse voice, "Don't go begging the wife. The mansion is rebuilding the ancestral hall. Go and see if the old man is over there. Go and beg the old man for the girl, please, doctor." Xiaoji nodded solemnly, walked out of the courtyard and went straight to the ancestral hall. Seeing Ling Zong supervising the craftsmen building the wall from a distance, Xiaoji quickly quickened his pace. "Sir," Xiaoji rushed to Ling Zong, took a breath and said urgently, "Please, can you hire a doctor for the girl?" Ling Zong looked strange. "What's wrong with the big girl? The eldest girl has been sleeping all day and night. She can't wake up no matter how hard she screams, and she can't swallow even if she's fed." Ling Zong's expression changed. What's going on? Why is Sister Chu falling asleep? Have you called a doctor? Xiaoji didn't expect that the elder didn't know about Ling Chu's fainting. Thinking of the indifference of Mrs. Tai and Mrs. Dong, Xiaoji was heartbroken. The eldest lady suddenly fainted when she was greeting Mrs. Tai and the others in the main hall. I begged Mrs. Tai and Madam to call a doctor for the girl, but they only said the girl is tired, just take a rest. Ling Zong's face changed several times in succession. He knew that neither his mother nor his wife liked the eldest daughter, so he subconsciously wanted to say that since he was tired, he should continue to rest. But facing the maid's pleading eyes, no words came out of her mouth. That's all, after all, it's his daughter who has been sleeping for such a long time, so she can't just ignore her. Ling Zong knew that a carriage would be set up at Xiaoji. Since the eldest girl is unconscious, go and ask a doctor to come back quickly. Xiaoji was overjoyed, but the gatekeeper wouldn't let me leave the house, saying that I couldn't come in or out at will without the orders of the Tai madam and the eldest madam. Ling Zong frowned. Tell the gatekeeper that I agreed to your leaving the house. If she stops you again, let her come to me. Thank you, Sir. Xiaoji hurriedly bowed, turned around and left in a hurry. Ling Zong glanced at the busy craftsman, hesitated for a while, then turned and went to the main courtyard. The Dongs and others are talking to the Mrs. Tai. Seeing Ling Zong come in, the wife raised her eyes and looked over. Why are you here? How is the construction of the ancestral hall going? The craftsmen are busy, Ling Zong replied casually, and then asked, I heard that Sister Chu suddenly fainted when she came to pay her respects. She has been sleeping for a day and a night. Why didn't she call a doctor? Mrs. Tai didn't expect that he came here to ask about this matter, and her face suddenly darkened. A flash of unhappiness flashed through Mrs. Dong's heart. After suppressing her anger, she put down the teacup in her hand. He raised his eyes and whispered to Ling Zong, Master, Sister Chu just came back from the house that day, and my mother just asked her if she was setting up a stall to tell fortunes again. She didn't say anything and fainted immediately. My mother and I have advised her several times before that if a girl always shows herself outside, she will not only be criticized by others, but she will also bring down the reputation of her brothers and sisters in the house. No matter how we tried to persuade her, Chu Jier still insisted on setting up a stall. I thought she was not in good health, maybe she was tired, so she fainted. It was not a big deal. It's time to take this opportunity to let her reflect, to see if she will act so willfully in the future. Mrs. Dong glanced at Mrs. Dong and said to the eldest son with a stern face, Okay, you don't need to pay attention to the things in the backyard. I will let people watch Sister Chu's side and won't let anything happen to her. You should go back and look at the ancestral hall. Construction over there. Although Ling Zong felt that it was not good for his eldest daughter to insist on going out to show off and set up a stall, his mother and wife did not ask a doctor, which was a bit too much. But he couldn't say much about the identity of these two people, so he could only put down the teacup in his hand, turned around and left the main hall. Xiaoji hurried to the hospital in a carriage and quickly invited a doctor to come in. The two maids waited expectantly for the doctor to diagnose and treat Ling Chu. However, as the doctor checked his pulse, his brows became more and more frowned. Seeing him take back his hand, Xiaoji and Lu Xiangju asked in unison, Doctor, how is my girl? The doctor put away the pulse pillow and shook his head, I'm sorry that I can't do anything. This girl is dying. You should prepare for the funeral as soon as possible. As soon as these words were spoken, the hearts of the two maids quickly sank. In the blink of an eye, tears fell one after another. Although they didn't get along with Ling Chu for a long time, the two of them already regarded her as a relative who depended on each other for life. Soon Xiaoji raised her hand to wipe away the tears on her face. The girl will definitely be fine. I will ask a doctor to come back. Ling Chu, where is the ticket? If I don't come, I will die.